Welcome to My Jane, My Story, the only show that enables women to share their own secrets and insights to wellness, one story at a time.
Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Hélène Blanchette at My Jane, and welcome to My Jane, My Story. Our mission is to unite and empower women through education and exploration of cannabis-derived solutions to address our biggest concerns like sleep, pain, stress, intimacy, and lifestyle. There's so much overwhelming information out there, so we decided that we needed to come together to change the dialogue and share stories through My Jane, My Story. This is a place to talk about real life experiences so we can help people live better. Every journey is unique, every path is special, and we're grateful to have guests who come here and share their unique perspective with all of us. This is a non-judgmental space where every question is necessary to learn and shift our perspective on this planet. And our special guest today is Jill Woodworth, and she's a podcaster, chronicler of being human, a parent of 5 children, 3 of whom have tuberous sclerosis complex, also with the acronym TSC, and each with varying effect. She's committed to giving a voice to the underdog, the oppressed, those for whom being heard is crucial to survival and quality of life. Her podcast, TSC Talks, is ranked on the top 20 of Apple in Philippines, New Zealand, and China, and with an enviable place in the USA on the top 200 chart of medical science podcasts. Jill, we're so honored to have you with us today and to hear this incredible story of courage that is yours.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank
Welcome.
you. Glad to be here.
Let me begin perhaps to mention again for the benefit of our audience here, you're a parent of 5 children, which is
That's
already a remarkable thing.
Or crazy.
This day of age. And 3 of which have a disease named tuberous sclerosis complex.
That's right.
So what is TSC and what's the condition of people affected by this disease? Is it rare, genetic, environmental?
It is. It's considered a rare disease. However, it's 1 in 6,000 live births, I believe. That's the latest numbers I know. So it's not as uncommon as you might think. A lot of people live with the diagnosis and have very mild symptoms and don't even know that they have the condition until sometimes they have a child that has it, and then the child may have more significant symptoms, and then they figure out the history. But what TSC is, it causes benign tumors to grow in different organs of the body. So, and like I said, they're benign, but particularly within the kidneys and the brain, there can be a lot of complications. There's epilepsy, a high incidence of epilepsy, autism, skin manifestations, whatever organ that there's a high percentage of tumors in has the potential to be impacted. So,
but usually like benign tumors can be removed. Is it, in this case, is it like they're small and spread all over to the point where you can't operate anymore?
Pretty much. I'd say they're, in the brain, actually, they do remove tumors. In fact, my daughter had brain surgery because one of the tumors in her brain was pressing on the cerebrospinal fluid and caused, it was going to be a problem. So that is, I wouldn't say that's common, but there is a good percentage of the people that have it that do have some type of surgery. However, you're right, they're sprinkled throughout, an organ. So it's not like you can go in and get them, or a lot of times they're like with the kidneys, they're kind of built into the vasculature of the actual organ. So to take it out would just be like basically damaging the kidneys too much, and they wouldn't, kidney transplants can happen. However, I should mention, some people have very mild symptoms. Some people have very minimal, impact. It's really hard to predict. You know, you can't say that, you can't predict it based really on anything. It's pretty much of a crapshoot as far as we know now. That, you
Wow.
know, as science progresses, there is a lot of research into it. Um, you know, it's yeah. So
And so you said 3 out of 5 of your
3 out of 5.
children. So
Yep.
how I would say, how did you discover it? Is it like at birth you know already, or does it take several years for it to show signs of it in this condition?
Sure. So my oldest that has TSC, my oldest daughter, she's 25 now. When she was about 5 months old, we noticed her having these weird spells where she would kind of like, she was very advanced up to then. She was already like starting to pull to a stand, and I noticed her like making this weird movement, and her eyes would roll back in her head. It didn't look like a typical seizure, but I knew, my husband at the time and I knew something was going on. So we called a neurologist, and before we actually got to the appointment, she went into what I knew was a seizure and went to the ER, where they diagnosed her and my ex-husband with the condition based on, you know, his own family history and skin symptoms. Now he wasn't aware that he carried the gene or any of the genetics of it. His dad had the condition, as it turns out, but he thought his dad just had, you know, epilepsy, because his dad started
Ah,
having seizures at age 40. So it was a family history in our case. And, you know, with my other children, I did do the amniocentesis, I think with one of them. And, you know, we knew that it was a risk. And but I was aware that before they were born with the other two that they did have the condition. So then I was, you know, I was prepared. I knew the routine. I kind of, like I said, it was unpredictable in terms of the severity of it, but I knew the process. I knew the doctors. I had the systems in place. So,
hmm.
to me, you know, and I didn't, you know, I think when you're making decisions like that, it's hard to predict the future. And, you know, there was a lot of blind faith and hope that they would be mild and whatnot. And, you know, each of them I would like to say, are doing pretty well, knock on wood. They've all had significant challenges and will continue to, but and it is possible, you know, it's case managing, and I don't know, each of them are differently affected, and it's been quite a journey, but really, you know, no regrets. I think I've grown as a human being, and just through the process of helping them, and it's helped me as much as I've helped them.
How severe is the condition? You say you have some
Sure.
mild and severe. How would you qualify the one that your children have? Or are they
Okay.
all pretty much on the same level?
No, they're actually not. My oldest, that's 25, she probably, and, you know, I think you know, as we learn more, each child had a little more intervention. So my oldest is probably the most, well, she's affected in that the education system wasn't caught up to deal with her issues at the time. So she kind of fell through the cracks in a lot of ways, but she's on the autism. She's always presents, you know, autism spectrum, very, very, I would say, intelligence in certain areas, like strands of intelligence, super great memory, you know, like amazing artistic skills. They all have incredible artistic skills. Like, yeah, my second oldest is actually an artist. She's going to school for art therapy, and my oldest is in a group home. So, you know, we tried every possible way to not let that happen, and tried to support her at home, but her needs became a little bit too much for the situation in our family. So we went through some placement choices that, you know, I don't want to go into that, but she ended up in a group home, and she needs a lot of supervision. She's got a high level of impulsivity. She's had brain surgery. She's had, you know, she's just had a lot of trauma, and she's really doing okay. She's got a good network there, and working with the management of the group home. You know, it's not that grim. I mean, her seizures are under control, and she's in a program that's kind of working on her core issues. So, you know, I like to stay hopeful.
That's
COVID's been tough though for those in group homes. I mean, she really didn't wasn't able to go anywhere up until recently.
She's
So
so she's 25. Well, how old are
25.
your other kids? She's the
Okay,
oldest.
so then my next one is 22, and my daughter Sarah, and she is going to be let's see, she's got 2 more years of college. She's going to a program at Lesley University for art therapy. She had major medical problems early on. Like, she's had the most challenges medically. Her kidney tumors are the largest. And she had we had a hard time stopping her seizures, to the
Wow.
point where we tried like a ketogenic diet and some extreme measures, finally getting them nailed down. For the most part, she'll have a breakthrough seizure every now and then, but academically, I was, we were right on her education. And anytime that there were, I was like beating down everything and bringing in therapists and stuff to support her early on. So she did, she just has tumors in different parts of her brain. So,
Wow.
but she did need brain surgery. And then my son, yeah, we've had a lot of behavior issues with him, which is very typical. There's a whole component of tuberous sclerosis complex that is called TAN, tuberous sclerosis associated neuropsychiatric disorders. So there's a high incidence of mental health issues, like 90% have some type of issue. And
That
so
could be like agitated or violent or
yeah, actually he was, it can be violent. It can go outward or it can go inward. And my oldest daughter, Mary Ellen, had a lot of inward behavior, self-injurious, a lot of typical autism type. She'd bang her head and stuff like that. But my son was all outward, a lot of aggression, screaming, attacking, whatever. So that was a challenge, and getting that nailed down took quite a bit.
and you
So
make some incredibly difficult and courageous decisions again in your life concerning your kids' health, and introduce cannabis as a medicine for them.
Yeah.
So how did you come along? I mean, it's
Sure.
you already had a journey that was not easy. How did the system support you, and at what point did you decide that you were going to introduce cannabis as a medicine for them along the way?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I ended up getting a divorce, and just, we just had too much going on. It was never going to work. So I moved out with the kids, and really took charge of their medical care and immersed myself in finding, just keeping them on track and working with the medical system. As time passed, I realized that if I didn't, I started to see the disconnects with, prescribers and different specialists treating different organs of the body. It was like constant appointments, constant therapies. I had people in and out of my house all the time, working with the kids. All that I'm really grateful for, but it became like, I don't know, it was just really
A job to
overwhelming.
manage on a full-time basis. Right?
Exactly. And so, it took a toll on my own health, my own mental health. And so, I've shared openly that I've been through rehab, and was prescribed personally a lot of pharma, and ended up having some medical conditions of my own, and did a lot of research. I didn't have a lot of financial resources or time to go seek out specialists. So I looked, I kind of went off the beaten track. I'd heard about cannabis. So long story short, I ended up using it, and it helped me to get off a lot of pharmaceuticals, improve my physical, mental health, spirituality. Everything kind of clicked for me when I started using it. I just kind of gave me a much broader perspective, and it's hard to just explain, but it provided a lot of balance, I think, that I hadn't had in a long time, like
Right.
internal.
It creates a space between your problems and yourself, which you can
Exactly.
a place to breathe and a place to reflect, right?
Exactly. It was that pause, and that helped me not only with my own issues, but it helped me with my kids. It helped me, not be so reactive, to take that pause and to observe things, and to kind of extract myself from the drama and be more, a little more objective and bring in resources that were more appropriate. So it helped, not only helped me. And so then I started hearing about that people were using it for epilepsy. And this was back like in 2014, 2015, not that long ago, but it seems like forever. Our doctor, the neurologist, was working with getting CBD into the pharmaceutical with the Epidiolex. She was in the research part of that. So I heard about that. And, you know, at the same time I was using it, it was very difficult to implement. It took me a few years to first have the courage to start kind of taking matters into my own hands. And I kind of had to just step aside from like reaching out for help from the medical system and kind of go into this underworld of alternative health and finding like healers and people that weren't necessarily doctors but had knowledge in the area, had treated a lot of individuals with autism using cannabis, and were, you know, it wasn't necessarily the medical system because there's just not the knowledge about cannabinoid medicine there. So
And I
that was,
imagine that
yeah.
you give them some oil or some tinctures
Yep.
and
So
products
yeah, we
derived
used,
like this.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that last part?
I said, and derived products derived from the cannabis products, but under like with oil under the tongue or
Right.
tinctures
Right. They're
and
not
things
smoking
like
joints or
that. No,
anything.
they're not smoking. I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that
sure.
because there's so much stigma still that, you
Yeah,
know,
we
they
all
could
sit around the
just,
table at night and smoke. Maybe someday, but no, not yet. It's all like oils and syringes. It's very
medicinal.
regimented. It's got to be, and it's hard. I think it's hard to grasp that concept if you're used to taking pills from, you know, that are prescribed, to start suddenly using these oils and whatnot. But you know, there's a lot of support out there. There's more knowledge about it now than there ever has been. Yeah. So I mean, and not all my kids are using it right now. Actually, my oldest, because she is in a group home run by government services, that's my next battle. Is to get her to be able to use some cannabis. But my daughter and son do. My son was doing fantastic. I mean, he took this picture back here. He's 20. He has an what I would classify as intellectual disability, but again, massive creative impulses, and doing great on the cannabinoid medicine. But unfortunately, there's just a lot with TSC, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, but basically he started having seizures again, and I had to kind of run back into the medical system, and ended up being able to use some Epidiolex, which is an FDA approved CBD isolate. Yeah. And so that's what he's using now. I supplement with other cannabinoids, and he is still using some pharma, which, you know, I think it's just balancing, you know, and it does fall on the caregiver, a lot of the challenge of doing that.
Yeah. So what change did you see in them after introducing cannabis in their behavior?
I guess I saw it's that same thing that you just said. It's that space. It's that it's almost like the lights were turned on for my son. Like he was able to really understand his own behavior in a way that he could change it. And huge, you know, he'd been through 2 like inpatient mental health treatments, like really intense stuff. And he was starting to grasp that he was a participant, you know, it wasn't all outward. He had to take responsibility. He had to apologize. He had to, you know, this is his life. He can't keep blaming someone else. And for a kid that age to grasp, and with these challenges, to grasp that, I think it's pretty cool. And when the cannabis came in, it's just like, I don't know. It's like it opened up a whole nother level of his personality. And, you know, people in his school programs, his doctors, everybody noticed. He was just, I don't know how to describe it, more together.
Was he calmer?
Calmer, more present. More focused,
more present, calmer, which is
more appropriate in, you know, in conversation, not so quite so aggressive. You know, well, not really. Yeah, kind of. It just like he would interrupt social cues, like he could judge social cues a little better. And I'm not saying it's fixed, that it's magic. It's a fabulous tool, one that we need far more of, especially with everybody, but this population that has so many things, so many challenges, and yet our medical system, if they're just relying on our symptom-based medical system, disconnected in some ways, it's going to be a challenge. So and I wish we could just marry all the different ways of understanding medicine together, and we had far more options. So and that's kind of the podcast. I started talking about the TSC and
Yeah.
interviewing parents, and what I was finding was basically people were just circling the drain in despair, quality of life suffering. It's depressing, it's heavy, it's just day in and day out of like living on the edge of the next life-threatening event, and that's how many families live. And so there's not much time for thought, there's not much time for thinking outside the box, and I just see that as a huge tragedy that's only going to get worse if there's not more
support and believe in what they're doing. Yeah.
right.
And so you have obviously now an impressive success with your podcasts, your top 200 medical science podcasts in the United States. That's impressive, right?
Thank you. I don't think it charted there. It's not consistent. I'm not gonna take credit for it, but yes,
just reaching it is like, let's think about it for a moment. In the hundreds and thousands, I would say, podcast there, it's quite impressive. You're top 20 in the Philippines, New Zealand, top 39 in China. And
actually, we hit number 4 in China in alternative medicine, like a few weeks ago.
So you're clearly, it resonates to a lot of people around the world. So let me ask you a question. Who was your first guest? It's been a while now.
Wow.
Who was your first guest on your show?
It was my youngest. I think it was oh my gosh, it was one of my kids. At first, I started out and I was just interviewing my kids, and I thought, it's like healing process for all of us. I thought I was going to be this help everybody, and I was the one teaching, but I ended up realizing that I needed to talk to more people than just my kids. So my first guest, I think, was my youngest daughter, who's now 17. She filmed me, she encouraged me, she was a huge supporter. And she came on and she talked about what it was like to have siblings with special needs, because my youngest does not have the condition, nor does my oldest from my first marriage. But she was my first guest. And then so my first guest besides my kids was a young man, Justin Leslie, who his mother, I met her through the TSC community, and he has TSC, and he didn't find out till he was a little bit older and had some really tough mental health challenges. But he came on and talked to me, and that was where it started. And I started pulling in people from the community and getting their stories out and just giving them a place to rant a little bit and to connect with them.
And now I guess parents, resonate very well with your story and come and share their stories as well and find comfort into this or solutions.
I think that I never want to act like I know more than I do. I think we're always learning, and but I feel like I get a lot of what they're going through, and I can make that connection and just kind of help them kind of release that ball of I don't know, it's very validating. I think that's what people have said, to share it out loud, to hear themselves, hear their own strength, when you tell you don't even realize what you're doing half the time, you're just
not feeling inadequate is already a very big thing, right? And
exactly.
Not feeling inadequate and feeling that you're not alone, feeling that what you're thinking is not wrong, it's normal. Or when you're exasperated and you don't know where to find your energy anymore, that others are going through the same thing. What a relief in some ways, right?
Absolutely. You just said that beautifully. That's exactly it.
And
It's that.
so what are some of the exciting things that you're working on for now that your podcast is very successful? And do you have other projects in the making?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I took a pause, just to really get, laser focused on what I can do. I wanted to make a little money at it and I never really did that. So trying to figure out what my next move is going to be is what I'm doing right now. I'm just talking to different people that I've met in the cannabis industry and outside and people in the TSC community and trying to just narrow down the focus a little bit. So yeah, I don't really have a super good answer on what the future looks like, but I know there will be one, and we will be finding ways to reach more people and just
Yeah. I
help.
mean, just with the positive attitude that you have and the incredible story that you have behind you. And I mean, I trust that the future will be very positive. So what's the message that to all parents with kids suffering from similar challenges would be for you?
I would say listen to your intuition. I think that we are taught to really depend on external, on doctors, on other people to tell us. I think that's what I had to learn, was that I knew in a lot of ways. I knew, you're watching your kids every day, and to stand, to value, step into your own power and communicate with your doctor eye to eye. There shouldn't be the power structure, and to really seek out medical professionals that will engage in that way. I think that's really important. So
That's
you
an
feel,
excellent advice, actually.
yeah.
Excellent advice. Now I mean, that's the fastest 30 minutes I've ever had. That would continue for a long
yeah,
time.
I'm intense.
But it was, but we always close the show with asking 3 questions, and our
Okay.
favorite way to wrap up is to ask, what is one thing that you're going to do for your own wellness today?
Actually, I'm going to, oh boy, I do a lot for my wellness, the things that I've done. Every day I go for some type of exercise. I'm a runner. I've had some injuries and I'm old. But I get outside in the woods in nature. So I'm going to do that.
Nature
Yeah.
is a good healer.
Yeah.
What is an inspiring quote or phrase that you tell yourself to keep going and to be so motivated and positive?
An inspiring quote. Yeah, offhand,
Do you have like a
nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. You have to kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight, by Bruce Cockburn.
That's pretty good. And do you have a favorite book or movie that you have?
I thought about that question, and I thought, I'm going to mention a podcast. Podcasters have inspired me recently. Matt Belair, he's a podcaster that does a health, spirituality, like he's really into like extreme sports, and he kind of integrates the full human experience. He's a great one. And who else was I going to mention? This spirituality channeler, Lori Ladd, has been a phenomenal resource for me, and anybody looking to expand their connection with what's beyond right now, Lori Ladd is fantastic. So those are the 2 that I'm going to mention, Lori Ladd and Matt Belair.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Well, thank you for being with us. That's all the time we have today. I would like to sincerely thank you for sharing this story. How can people listen to your podcast?
Well, we're on all the major platforms. Just look up TSC Talks. Our website is https://tsctalks.com. We have a platform on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over the place. So it's not hard to find. A Google search of TSC Talks will lead you to us. So
well, thank you, Jill Woodworth. It was a pleasure having you.
My pleasure and my honor. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. So as you know, My Jane supports International Sanctuary, empowering survivors of human trafficking, and we include a piece of jewelry that is handcrafted by a survivor in our signature boxes. In 2020, the National Human Traffic Hotline received more calls from California than any other states in the US, followed by Texas and Florida, respectively. It's a tragedy that continues to happen. And if you want to contact the Human Trafficking Hotline, please do. They're there to support you at 1-888-373-7888 or text 233733. You can also visit myjane.com for the wealth of information and to have the marketplace that is safe to buy products that have been vetted and tested. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for this.
Thanks for tuning in to My Jane, My Story. If you want to learn more, you can join the My Jane community at myjane.com. Get instant access to our Facebook group, Facebook community, educational resources, and updates on My Jane products and special events. And for personal attention right now, you can also pick up the phone and call 833-MY-JANE2. That's MYJANE2. And speak to your own wellness concierge, because it's time to own your wellness. Be well.